Hi everyone, this is part 2. So we went through the creation of the world, we went through the creation of the character. We know we have a corrupt sheriff, we know that railway's coming, it's going to be stopped in a town further up. I'm pretty sure we discussed that there's a man buying up the land. He's going to be the antagonist. He's going to set up as much infrastructure as he can so the railway will stop there, and he owns a lot of the land. He's probably going to get some money from the government to help, build up things around the railway. He's going to put things in place. We don't see him. We know he's the antagonistic force against the cowboy, who's a bit corrupt, who looks after the outlaws, that sort of thing. And we're going to talk about an oppositional matrix. So it's the standard Boston Consulting Group 2222. And what they work on is what does the antagonist, so it's at the top, antagonist, protagonist, on the side, antagonist, protagonist. So these are your combinations out of that. What does the protagonist think of the antagonist? What does the antagonist think of the protagonist? What does the antagonist think of themselves? And what does the antagonist think of themselves? So let's start that. The protagonist, he's built up this. He was an ex-soldier. I think we made that decision. He's an ex-soldier, came out with nothing. He came west. He maybe came into the town. Let's say he was a little bit lawless. So there's a bit of a backstory we can start to do as we get to know him. He's come into the town. He's solved a few problems. He became the lawman, and then over time, he became a problem himself. So now he is a problem. It's like that line in The Dark Knight. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain. So he has now become a villain. But he still sees himself as the hero. This town wouldn't exist without me. We'll cover that off when we speak about moral neutrality in a minute. This town wouldn't exist without me. This town, it owes me. I actually fix things. I need to survive. I need this money. Otherwise, I have to do something else. And then this town's going to fall into mayhem. He still sees himself as a white knight, but he's also narcissistic because I'm the only one that can do this. Everything else would fail without me. We've seen people like this. We've seen politicians like this. I am the only one that can fix this problem. He's that guy, right? So he's narcissistic. He's doing bad things but believes they're good things. That's how he sees himself, as the backbone of this town. How does he see the antagonist, the Newtown guy, the railway guy? Well, he sees him as a disruptive force. He sees it as something to be dealt with, and initially is no bigger problem than any other problem because of the narcissism and the arrogance, beginning to see some things now. He's something to be dealt with, something to be gotten out of the way, something to be put down if need be. It's a problem. It's not insurmountable. He doesn't understand why the guy's doing it. Maybe he'll go and make this guy an offer, but this guy is a thing to be dealt with. Now, how does the antagonist see the cowboy, see our guy? He probably sees him as a relic of the past. He doesn't consider him. He's going to be part of that town that dies off because he's really arrogant. He's got the arrogance of wealth in the Old West when there was poor people and rich people. When they'd flick a coin to the doorman, like, there you go, that's for you. I'm not even going to hand it to you. I'm just going to flick it in your direction. It's up to you to catch it. He's that guy, right? He might be charming. He's very charming to the people around him, his friends, his close friends. He might have a fiancée or something like that. She's all impressed with his money. He's new money. He's not old money, so he's made it through industrials, right? So he sees the cowboy as nothing of consequence. He's going to die off when the town dies off. He's a pain in my ass. He's coming here and talking to me, but he's of no consequence. I'm focusing on building the town. No consequence. How does he see himself? For the most important thing to the antagonist is a legacy. He's hoping that they'll build a statue to him as the founder of the town. Maybe name the town after him. Maybe just use his last name as like Harrisburg, Williamstown, those sorts of things. Maybe his name is something. It'll be something that you can put a burg or a town behind. If it's a burg, he's got German heritage, so it's Munchburg or someplace. He's going to try to build this town around him. He sees that as his legacy. He's going to become important in America. He's going to drive towards statehood. This is his destiny is to be the man that forms a town around the people. Community will love him. This is what he wants. So maybe he's got a little bit of living up to the family thing, you know what I mean? His family was once wealthy in Europe. They've lost everything. He's come here and he's going to get it back. He's going to prove that the family name still means something. And so he's going to be that guy. He's going to be important. So that's how he sees himself, as the man that's going to restore the family name, the family wealth, and he deserves this because of who he is. He's a Gutenberg or whatever. That's him. So we've got this one guy that thinks he deserves everything because the town owes him. We've got another guy who wants to build a town, who wants to get back what he had, and he's driven because he's better than what the world thinks of him. So we've got two people in opposition that both believe they're better than what they are. Yeah, classic Clash of the Titans. One guy sees, the antagonist sees the protagonist as nothing to worry about. He's just going to die for this town. Where the protagonist sees the antagonist as someone to be dealt with. So those contrasts in how they see each other is interesting as well. You can use this for coming up with relationships between anybody, and you can keep expanding it out. What would he do if he did this? What would he do if he did that? And it's real simple. But the most important part of this is, what do you think of yourself, and what does this guy think of himself? Because that will tell you what they will do. It's not like, oh, he's so terrible, he's just going to go kill him. This is, say, another story. There's a nun, and she's being harassed by someone in the village. She should just go shoot the guy. Well, she's a nun. What does she think of herself? Well, she thinks that she's taken vows of no violence. She's a better person. She thinks she's answerable to God, so she's not going to do this. And that will inform you of her moral character, which will also inform her of future actions, which also then feeds back into the empathy matrix. What has she done in the past? Those sorts of stuff. So you see how you begin to use these tools. The way we'd use them in Intel is, if there's these two groups, what do they think? What do they think of us? What do they think of? Okay, here's one. We had some travelling people that were going around doing bad things. It was a massive family group. So we said, what does society think of them? And what do they think of society? And what do they think of themselves? And what does society think of itself? Well, the towns they were going to, the society thought of themselves as like giving people a fair go. People come in the town, a little bit of that country hospitality. If someone needs to plug their caravan in, and it's the caravan park's closed, pull it onto my property. I'll throw a lead out of my barn. You can just run your caravan here tonight and head on the next day. There's a lot of that in like country New South Wales. So that's how they saw themselves, as country folk. The con people, the travellers, saw everyone else outside their family group as victims. They deserve to be taken care of. They're not one of us. They have daytime jobs. They're being exploited by the system. We're the wild boys. We're just out here making money, living on the edge. And they saw themselves as that, separate from society. So once people saw them in ignorance, saw them as someone to help. Once they knew who they were, they saw them as someone who was bad. These guys saw themselves as a rogue unit traveling around the country. And they saw people as just cattle to be taken advantage of. So that's what we could sort of say, okay, we're not going to be able to play on empathy. We're not going to there's going to be no press conferences saying, look, you're exploiting people, or here's this poor lady, you took $100,000 off her, she's going to have to eat her own left leg now. Sometimes you can appeal to a criminal's or a criminal group, the impact of their badness, and people within the group will begin to chip away, and it'll loosen the group, loosen the whole. But this was a tight-knit group, so we knew that wouldn't work for us. And it also is a good way of unlocking your own bias. What do you think of this character? What would this character think of you? So you can unlock your own biases. The empathy matrices and these relationships matrices are very, very interesting and good to use. So we've got this. Now, how would you lay this out over time on a story? You could pack everything in early, but we need an inciting incident, so the railway's coming to town. We know the relationship between him and the bandits, so I'm going to sort of say that I like when I'm doing a story, I don't mind looking at like the Hamlet model, where the protagonist will disappear at the midpoint, and the second half of the second act, if we just use big terms to explain the flow of a story, would possibly be about the bandit. So I've got where I can put there, so I need to know a bit more about the bandit to put it in there. And the third act will be the resolution. At the midpoint, when the sheriff disappears, I'm going to say that's when the sheriff finds out that the guy with the money is a bad guy, and that the town isn't supposed to be where he wants it, but he's bribing, he's paying the surveyor to say that's the best spot. So he's wheeling and dealing and using whatever levers he can to have it moved, that maybe it was supposed to be back at the sheriff's town. So beginning, that's all obvious laid out for what's in front of us. As this town grows, as this story grows, I'm going to have to draw this one for you. The last sort of tool that's really good to use, and I've got a few more tools I'll quickly discuss, but I don't have models for them. Let me just get a pen off my desk, and I'll probably have to get my glasses again. 1 sec, sorry. Imagine a set of stairs. So I'll draw it real quick. This is really great video, isn't it? Super interesting. Right, see that? It's got an influence matrix. So up here, we'll put the sheriff. Here we'll put the, what shall we call him? The millionaire. The next one we'll put down as the bandit. And then we'll put the surveyor. Okay, that's their relationships. There to there. So what you do is where they intersect, you put down the relationship. So here, the sheriff and the millionaire. Okay, they don't know each other very well, and they're what should we call it? Antagonistic acquaintances. So antagonistic acquaintances up here. The millionaire and the bandit, no relationship. The sheriff and the bandit, though, former military. Okay. And then down here, the bandit and the surveyor, no relationship. The surveyor and the millionaire have a corrupt relationship. And we might say the surveyor has been robbed by the bandit once. Okay, so there's no relationship between the sheriff and the surveyor. So if we wanted to have a way that they could communicate, a way they could get an introduction, we may have to introduce a new character, like the banker. In the sheriff's town, there is a banker, and the banker knows the surveyor because the surveyor has to get money through him to pay wages for people. And the banker is part of the sheriff's corrupt network. So now we know how we're going to get the sheriff in contact with the surveyor. Sorry if I wasn't looking at you, I was looking up the camera because I had to see where I was pointing. So the sheriff can get hold of the surveyor via the banker. And then if he wants to get some inside information on the millionaire, he can put pressure on the surveyor to supply it that way. And these can go forever. These are the massive sorts of relationship matrices you use in things like if you're writing a Game of Thrones, or you've got an ensemble cast, or you've got a space opera or a television series that's going over numerous numbers of times. You say, well, I really need to get that guy into the story. So, well, that guy, go to the matrix, that guy knows that guy, so their relationship is familial, they're brothers, so he won't betray him. But he does have this friend down here, and that friend there owes this friend money. So if our character buys that guy's debt, he can now put pressure. So you begin to build up these things. That is a relationship matrices. And that is fantastic in the Intel world. I'll give you how we use it in Intel. We would use that to map out phone calls. So we could sort of go, oh, he's contacted him at 2 a.m. He's contacted him. He's contacted him. He's contacted. There's never been contact between those two. So if there is contact between those two, it must have been through him. And then you can also go along a line here, right? Who's the two most best connected people in this story? Well, it's the sheriff and the surveyor. They're actually the best connected people in the story. So there's going to be more interactions in your story regarding the surveyor and the sheriff. If we want to bring the millionaire in, all we've got is the corrupt relationship here. And we didn't put the relationship between him and the sheriff. So we've got one relationship there, one relationship there, and that's it. So he's got the same amount with the surveyor. So the surveyor is now in the middle between the millionaire and the corrupt sheriff. That puts him in a good situation from a story point of view. So, and then you've got logic. Logic, if people say that doesn't make sense. I'm sorry, I've jumped ahead. I said we're going to discuss moral neutrality. Moral neutrality is everybody, even serial killers and the most insane people, want to get back to a moral position. Nobody wants to be the mustache-twirling bad guy. People want to be able to justify what they do themselves. And, you know, when you hear of abusive husbands that smack their wives around, they do moral neutrality by you made me do it. They victim blame. That's them clawing their way back to a moral neutral position. Someone breaks into a car, steals a handbag. Well, they would have taken their handbag in. It wasn't important to them, but it's really important to me. So it's more important to me than it is to them. So they would have given it to me if they had given the chance. The sheriff, his moral neutral position is this town would not survive without me. Okay, I may be doing the wrong thing here and there, but it's the only way I can survive. And if I survive, the town survives. The millionaire, his moral neutral position is the world has turned its back on my family. I'm doing some wheeling and dealing, but that's business. That's what business is really like. People who don't know that about business are naive. I'm going to form a town here. I'm going to give people a livelihood. I might be corrupt. I might be wheeling and dealing and stealing things, taking advantage of my political connections, but I am doing a good thing in the end. So the ends justify the means. That's moral neutrality. And people will always do that. People just won't keep doing evil things. Motivation, like I said before, is the suffering, dissatisfaction, and jealousy. Oh, I've forgotten that. And they come in the forms of medicine and vitamins. Medicine means you're going to do it immediately. Vitamins, you're going to be taking action for a future suffering, jealousy, or dissatisfaction. So he's dissatisfied with his life. That's what's driving him. And that's he's unsatisfied now. That's what's driving the millionaire to do immediate things, to do immediate action. That's a medicine version of his dissatisfaction. You could even say that he's suffering with his life. The sheriff knows he's going to suffer. He's going to lose his livelihood. He's going to lose his grip on the town. He's not going to be able to fit his narcissistic needs, all those sorts of stuff. So that's impending. That's a vitamin. So he might sometimes take a little bit of a wait and see. I won't kill the millionaire yet. I'm going to try to not have to kill him because that'll bring more heat, because then he can see there's going to be the suffering of having an investigation when you kill a millionaire out here in the wild frontier. Can I get the bandits to do it? What can I do? I have to understand what his death's going to mean, those sorts of stuff. So this being like nearly a political thriller in a way is also a different take on a Western. It's not the normal, you stole my cattle, I'm going to have to shoot you, you varmint. It's not a normal Western. So we've got this end of the Western era, which makes it just different enough to maybe be interesting, to maybe be sellable. Don't know. We need to have a love interest. So maybe the sheriff has a love interest, or maybe it's someone in the tropey one to do would be someone in the antagonist's world that he falls in love with, or that he's attracted to, or that, yeah, that's okay. That would be a tropey thing. And you can have one or two tropes in a story. It doesn't have to be trope-free. But if there's someone in the orbit of the millionaire, maybe a sister that he's raising, that he's looking after because the family's gone, she begins to have feelings for the sheriff, even though he's a bit old and crusty. Or maybe she's the older sister and she thinks she's been overlooked. Yeah, interesting. She was the older sister. She thinks she's been overlooked. She thinks she deserves more when she was never given it by the family. So she doesn't mind helping out the sheriff because it's going to stab her brother in the back who's supplanted her, who's taken over what was rightfully hers. She should have been the heir to whatever the family had left. Yeah, not a bad bit. So those are the basic tools. And then you've got logic. When you've got logic, some people want a thing to happen, but they don't set up the first part. So what logic has is an action, an outcome, a consequence. And that's the logic. So why did that happen? Well, that happened because of this, but this was a consequence of that, and that was this action here. You have those things, and a story will hold together logically. You've got to be able to plan out your logic. And I'll probably go into a third video. I think we've got enough tools here to chew over and mull over. So that's it. I hope these have helped. If you've got any questions whatsoever, feel free. Stick them in the things below. I'll leave these up for a couple of months maybe, but I probably won't leave them up forever. Eventually, When version 2 of my book, Tools Not Rules, comes out, I'm going to have a few more tools in there. There's new things that I'm seeing on the Intel space and in the Intel industry that would make sense, that you could use to understand people, situations, scenarios better, because that's what we're really about. And this is going to be a quick wrap up, 10 seconds. I'm dead set against those sorts of ideas of, here's a formula, fill out this, on this page your character must do this, on page 25 you must have a mentor, then your mentor must die by page 50. And when people say, all movies are the same these days, and we wonder why. These tools work on you. They work on you, the writer. They unlock things in your head. They unlock ways of thinking. They unlock ways that you can see the world. And they drag out of you your story and allow you to put it on paper in the way that you want. Linear, non-linear. I like the Shakespearean thing where the main character goes away and it gives a end of second act space for you to breathe and play with your B characters and your B storyline and then bring them back. And that's just me. That's how I like writing. There's no dictating in this. These are rules, and you might already have a rule or a tool that you use. These are tools, not rules, sorry. You might already have a tool that you use to fix these problems. When you get stuck on an idea, you do this, you play this word game, you roll dice, whatever it happens to be. Great. These are the things that I learned as an Intel analyst that I brought with me into my writing. I hope this really helped you guys. Talk to you all later.